No. Wait, it says recording in progress?
We didn't record anything?
No.
Stop.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Behind the Creation, where I interview founders, core contributors, and leading members within the crypto industry to learn a little bit more about them personally and also learn a little bit more about their passions, their drive, and also what they're building within the space as well. Today, I'd like to introduce Chauncey onto the show. Welcome, Chauncey.
Hey, thank you, Michael. Appreciate you having me, brother.
Thanks for taking the time out today. And this is for those that don't know, this is actually take two. We actually had a whole take last time, and I'll kind of like show you the little clip in the beginning to kind of show you. But we had a really good conversation. So thanks for taking extra time to kind of re-record this with me as well.
Certainly. Technical difficulties are a nature of the beast.
Yeah. It was the record button last time, but let's kind of like dive right into it and kind of like go go into your background and everything. So tell us a little bit about you and kind of like what you do within the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into the crypto space towards the end of 2020. Spent about 10 years with GE as a global program manager leading into that. Was looking for something new, taking that skill set, really applying it to my own sort of entrepreneurial driven endeavor. And with crypto and Web3, I just fell down an intellectual rabbit hole with DeFi and Web3. That light bulb moment of realizing that it just fundamentally changes how people can coordinate and transact value, and really just opens up a blue ocean design space for human systems thinking and how we design, the future world we all inhabit. So that's what got me into it. And then it's been an absolute roller coaster of a ride, just plunging into the deep end, founding Angel Giving with a team that came together in a decentralized hackathon from all over the world, different walks of life and experience. So yeah, it's been quite a trip to go from sort of 10 years of corporate America, Fortune 50 type operating to just leading a startup through one of the most turbulent and just constantly changing times that I could have possibly imagined. So yeah, man, I've learned more in the past couple of years than I probably have in most of my life combined.
Yeah, crypto's it's a wild space, and it's great to have people that are going to be contributing and kind of like creating a better value for it in the long term. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and kind of like how you grew up.
Yeah, so we moved around a little bit. I was born way up in Buffalo, New York, just freezing cold, snowy area. My biological dad split when I was super young, so my mom raised me as a single mom for a bit. Before meeting the man that I consider my dad, they met when I was around 2, got married when I was 3. We moved out to Arizona just to really, my parents were looking to try out a new adventure. My dad wanted to escape the New York area for a bit. And so I grew up out in Arizona and, lived out there up until, through my first year of high school, and then eventually came back to New York. Always upstate, so about like 90 minutes to 2 hours north of Manhattan. But yeah, I moved around a bit when I was a kid for that, and that whole experience taught me a lot just in terms of change and resiliency. Because as a kid, completely changing your context where you're living, your friend group, like it's a lot. And for me at the time, especially that transition from Arizona to New York, it was like, hey, I've established here. I've worked my way through like the Lord of the Flies kind of middle school experience I had, and found some kind of friend group and belonging, and it was like, I'm just finally making it, and then just completely shifted, dropped in another state. But it was probably the best thing that ever could have happened for me, because it allowed me to make that transition with a lot more personal confidence than I would have earlier in my life, and really have kind of a fresh start of sorts, which is really something that can be kind of rare and refreshing for people overall. So I look back on that experience and I think that it helped prep me for, my willingness to, take the leap and make changes in my personal and professional life.
Tell me about middle school. So kind of like you were kind of like uprooted, then placed over to was it, middle school time frame over back to New York. Like how was that transition for you?
Yeah, I mean, so the transition was really good. So that part went well. But the time leading up to that, I've never fit in. I've never been someone who just immediately was like, oh, I'm like all the other kids and this is fine. So early on, right, I really had to deal with those feelings as a child of like feeling different, feeling like I don't fit in, like I'm not like, the prototypical like, you know, boy's boy or man's man kind of thing. And I'm also not this, I'm also not that. And as a kid, right, you want to fit in, you want to belong. So that was very trying for me psychologically, where I basically just developed a defense mechanism of my analytical self and my intelligence to say, hey, look, I may not be as cool or athletic or this or that, but this is an area where I can hold my ground and really just sort of form my early identity largely around that. Which is interesting because it's been a whole, shedding of that sort of experience as I've grown older and realized some of those old defense mechanisms are no longer necessary. But yeah, long story short, I just had trouble fitting in middle school. I always had my own personal friend group. I was an only child, so like, kids in the neighborhood, I'd basically make my family and had really good, strong, enduring friendships there. But within school itself, it was, just never fitting in, always wanting to fit in, and having those kinds of experiences where you see like how cruel kids can be, like at that age,
Yeah.
you don't know, you don't have the context. And so kids can be vicious, especially to someone they see as different. Didn't help that I was chubby and that there was a Pokemon named Chauncey out there at the time, and my nickname was Chance. So that was not a fun experience, but all of it, having a different name, Chauncey, having, not being the most physically fit kid, not knowing the right sort of like kind of box to fit in. All of that just basically led to a place where um, there's a moment for me that I always look back on. It was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life, and um, I was part of a group of kids who would go from middle school to the high school to take some of the advanced math classes they didn't have at the middle school. And it was like a pretty small group of us, like 6 to 8 kids. And within that group, I wasn't at the bottom of the social pecking order. So what I found myself doing, and it was very unintentional, was making fun of and teasing a kid kind of like below me in the pecking order. And I didn't think much of it. I didn't think through how I was making him feel, why I was doing these things, until one day, quite unintentionally, I made him cry. And I just realized in that moment, like how powerful my words and actions could be, how I was perpetuating the same kind of cycle of behavior that, I hated so much for myself. And it just forced an internal reckoning of like, who am I as a person? How do I want to go about life? And that's really where I've adopted my ethos of just, kindness and compassion and leading with empathy. And as I started to do that, I saw all of the ways that came back to me in very practical kinds of ways, sort of made it its own type of uh, addictive kind of thing of like, oh, I want to be kind. I want to help people out. If someone else is being bullied, I want to be the one to speak up and defend that person. And so I started taking on that role for myself more, and it felt much better. It felt much more me. And I would say that turning point was probably, one of the most critical in my life of how I've gone about things since then.
Yeah, I was kind of like the same way too. It's like growing up, I had a stepdad, and for him, I just saw him as my father because like I didn't know anyone else. Like he's the one that raised me and everything. So like while I was in school, everyone was just kind of like everyone was also a little bit different to me too. Because like when I was 13, I moved to Houston, and at the time, Houston didn't have a lot of Asians. So they're like, cool, you're Bruce Lee, you're Jackie Chan, show me some moves, like, well, um, And it was like that, a little bit racist, but also at the same time, it's like we're kids, it was like we're 13, 12 and stuff. And after a while, I started noticing that basically people would start picking on me more and more. So I was like, one day I was like, I probably have to change. And if I don't, then this is just going to continue on happening. In the beginning, I tried to tell the teachers about it. Nothing happened. And I was like, after a while, I was like, you know what? Like, I really have to stand up for myself. And that's when I started getting into a little bit of fights and stuff like that. But once I got towards high school, people knew me as the one that would stand my ground. And what would happen is that other people would get bullied and they would literally be like, Michael, I would see it happen. And I just tell them, I was like, if anyone says, anything mean to you, like, let me know. I'll stand up and I'll talk to them. I've gotten beaten down so many times, but also the other times it's kind of like I would be the bully's bully. I would be the one that tells the bully, hey, you need to stop. And, not just like straight into fighting or being violent and stuff like that, but just kind of like letting them know it's like, hey, like there's a support group. And eventually after a while, like I didn't fit in with, anyone at all. It was kind of like I had to make my own little Avengers, right? My own little team of people. And I told every one of them, I was like, I have your backs, but don't make it to where it's like you're crying wolf and, coming to me with all these problems. And then I have to do something about it. You got to stand up for yourself too. And that kind of like led to, everyone wanting to, be able to not like just be able to stand up for themselves. And they just gave me the pride, like even till now, is like whenever I see something, I say something, just making sure that I'm protecting everyone that's going to be around me, but also at the same time protecting good. I don't want I don't want people to feel like, hey, look, if I'm doing something good or if I'm different and stuff like that they get taken advantage of. I want them to feel like there is a support system. And it's good for you to also build, angel giving as well. So tell me a little bit about like how that journey was for you from like middle school to like college area to where you kind of like start going into the phase of I want to create this, or other lessons that kind of made you push towards angel giving.
Yeah. So, I mean, within college, I had a great experience. It was also when I kind of fell into very bad habits in some things with like alcoholism. I went pretty far down that hole for a while. And I would say that started in college, but my college experience overall was successful. I had an interesting journey because my freshman year of college, I actually started at Sarah Lawrence, which is fairly prestigious and very expensive college just outside the city. And it's one of those super liberal arts colleges where you can't get like the only degree you can get is a liberal arts degree. So it's really all about the actual education and also the connections that you're making like at the school. But it was so intellectually invigorating because it was all, circle style tables with the teacher sitting with the class, like, 15 people tops per class. And I would go from, philosophy to psychology and the law to utopian fiction. I'd be drawing connections between all these different disciplines. And it was amazing. But the sophomore year of college, so first of all, I had also at the same time hadn't done much drinking and smoking in high school. So when I went to college, I started drinking and smoking heavily just because everyone around me was. And basically sophomore year of college, they had a 2-week period where everyone came back prior to classes starting. And this was sort of one of my first entrepreneurial endeavors because I noticed an opportunity where you could buy pot really cheap in quantity. You could bake that into cookies, brownies, Rice Krispie treats, and then you could sell those for, $10 a pop, or, buy two, get one free kind of deal. And so that's what I did. And this was all before classes started sophomore year. And I had a line out my dorm room with, people buying these, and entrepreneurially, great little venture, quadrupled my money in a day. But there was a diabetic kid who ate 2 of the Rice Krispie treats, ended up having a diabetic reaction, hospital got called. So it all came back to me. And, I didn't do anything wrong in terms of like It was just pot, it was just baked goods. It happened to be a diabetic, we shouldn't have eaten sweets. But it all was one of those things that ultimately got me kicked out of Sarah Lawrence, which at the time was just heart-rending, awful. I still remember the experience, the drive home with my dad picking me up, the silence in the car, it was awful. And the good news of that is I got kicked out so fast sophomore year. I was able that same year to slot right into my local community college for a year. Shout out to Ulster County. They do a great community college program there. And from there, I went to SUNY Albany, finished up my degree. Very, very different experiences from like Sarah Lawrence, this like education, so like learning facility where you didn't get a specific degree, to Albany, which was very much you get a degree to get a job. This is a factory kind of situation. And so all of that led to me graduating Albany. My friend at the time was leading a contracting team working for GE. And GE was one of those companies that was super hard to break into. And it was like this great opportunity for me right out of college. But my dad was a global travel writer. So his whole thing was he basically had flown out with the family, like we moved out to Arizona. He started as a waiter, started his own travel agency. Was successful with his brick and mortar travel agency until airlines completely changed the industry by cutting any commission to travel agents. So that totally upended his industry. He basically pivoted away to shutting down the travel agency and becoming a travel writer. And then he was published in a number of publications, became one of the first travel writers to embrace the internet. So he started writing for different online publications, became the senior travel editor of a site, GoNomad.com. And he basically just created the best possible career for himself you could imagine, where he's being paid to go all over the world and write about the most amazing experiences and things happening, and then just get paid to go there and write about them. So I talk about all this because it led to a sort of fork in the road for me. And I remember this because I was in Turkey at the time. I was on a travel writing trip. We had landed in Istanbul. We had driven down to Cappadocia. We did this hot air ballooning trip over Cappadocia, which if you're not familiar, it's just one of the most like otherworldly kind of things you can imagine. It's like this whole city built into the soft rock mountains. And it's just like really fascinating kind of architecture. But yeah, so was on this mind-blowing experience, had gotten back from that hot air ballooning trip, got a call from my friend that night at the hotel saying that I'd been accepted to get the job with GE. And I had this path of I can go down the travel writing path, which has the best perks in the world, but pays crap. Right, you're being paid like a couple $100s per article. You really need to figure out how to make that work outside of like what you're directly being paid to write. So there's this adventure, and then there is GE and this like safety and security, and how can you turn this opportunity down kind of thing. And at the time, I chose safety and security. I chose the GE route, and flash forward 10 years, I spent 10 years with GE, came up through their leadership programs, went from being like a contracted financial analyst up to being a senior global program manager, leading teams all over the world, doing ERP and software implementation projects all over, working across GE businesses. It was a great experience. I learned a lot from that, but it was also just so suffocating in its own way, where when you're in that bureaucratic machine, you start to see it for what it is. You see how slow and inefficient it is. You see how difficult it is to really drive change, and just how much you are at the whim of corporate overlords who are like, oh, we're going to restructure this and combine this. And then 2 years later, we're going to break it up and do this and restructure it that way. It's like, it was very unfulfilling. And that's how I got into Angel and Web3, where I just wanted to be putting my energy and potential into something greater. And then I saw for the first time really the opportunity for true systems change with Web3 and blockchain and this trustless technology. And yeah, the rest is history. It's what led me to Angel Given, to start what I'm doing now, and to really go back to that moment 10 years in the past where I chose security over adventure and say, you know what, screw that. I have experienced the security side of it. I'm ready to take the leap. And man, I don't know if I realized how much of a leap that would be after everything we've been through over the past 2+ years. But yeah, no regrets. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Other than marrying my wife and having my 2 amazing children. And yeah, had the opportunity to work with some of the most incredible people I've ever met, both within the Angel team and just through the network that naturally develops around an impact organization. So yeah, been blessed to encounter many, many high vibration frequency kind of change making people in the world. And when you start going in those circles, you just start seeing the world in a different light, and seeing the potential, and seeing all of the people working to enact real change. So it's been very, very inspiring.
Yeah, I like to go back to the one comment on like the weed brownies part. That is what we call derivatives arbitrage. Right. in the DeFi side.
I'm stealing that, Michael.
Directly derivatives arbitrage. And I like how like the fork in the road portion too. It's like you're looking between security and kind of like jumping off of a safety net. And there's a really good video from Steve Harvey called Parachute, where he talks about you're at the cliff of life, and you see your friends soar and pass and continue on their journey, through like financial freedom and all these things. They're like traveling around the world and all these things. And then everyone's just like, hey, I could just kind of like be safe and be on this cliff, I'll get a steady paycheck and everything. But to fully like embrace what you're going to be building and kind of like being an entrepreneur, it's like you have to jump off, you jump off and take a leap of faith. In the beginning, your parachute might not open, you might hit the rocks and everything, but you get back up, and from there you kind of like do it again, you try again. Eventually your parachute will open and then you'll fly and soar. So it's kind of like the fork in the road portion. It's like you pick security, but after a while, like, I'm gonna take that leap and I'm gonna give this a go into crypto. And you took a leap with Angel Giving, and you did hit a rock. Kind of like everyone hit a rock in crypto. Like Luna was kind of like one of the big things that happened recently, and you guys were built on Luna. Tell me how that went.
Yes, happily. So incredible. It really feels like I'm living in a simulation, because here's my experience. I know that I am itching to do something outside of GE. I know that Web3 blockchain is the space I want to get into. I've never been like an entrepreneur by nature. Like, I've always been an innovator within GE, and in retrospect, I realized what an entrepreneur my dad was. And what I just described of his journey. And if I were to say to you though that like I had the intention of Angel Giving in my mind and to like go found my own company and do all of this, like I would be lying to you. Like, it was very much just the flow of the universe kind of opened up that path where it was a shower thought. So the basis of it is I was evangelizing crypto and blockchain to my friends and family. I was literally putting together like personal PowerPoint decks and doing private webinars for my friends and family, where I was just like, this is what this technology is, this is why it matters, this is why you should pay attention. And one of the slides in that deck is, this is the way that crypto and DeFi can change the world and help people escape poverty traps. And I had different examples of, a person in Venezuela escaping currency devaluation, or even people in developed markets just getting out of the ownership poverty trap of not being able to afford a house, not being able to have savings to accumulate, and there's this access to financial tooling and opportunity. And then, of course, emerging markets all over the world, there's so much. And so I had that in my mind, and I saw that as like the real potential and dream of what this technology could enable. But Angel started with just a shower thought where I tweeted out, hey, who wants to help me build this protocol called the gift that keeps on giving? And I ended the thread with like, and by the way, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was crazy because I've never seen a hackathon like the one we entered since then. And it was, you just submit an idea and then people can join that idea and basically form a team around it. Like most hackathons, you have something that you're coming into it with, some team already that you're working with, however bootstrapped. But this was just my idea, and then people all over the world gravitated towards it, wanted to do something with purpose, joined the team. And that's where the team filled out with, individuals who had launched their own nonprofits and grew them to multinational organizations, people who had done impact fellowships, founded nonprofits in like Calcutta, done microfinancing and different types of impact financing initiatives, run impact funds. So basically all the right people that you would want to bring a lot of intentionality and knowledge into how you would design a protocol designed around impact. And so that was one of the huge blessings of just this great team formed around the concept, and the community formed around the concept too. So we ended up going on to win that hackathon. We received $300,000 in just non-dilutive, no strings attached funding to go build out on Terra. And we took that, we ran with it, we were able to parlay that into over $6 million in donations, over 150 organizations onboarded at the time, now over 180 because we've continued onboarding since then. But yeah, we basically had a ton of early success. Like it was like, oh, we're in this hackathon, I wonder what will happen, to, oh, we won this hackathon, oh, we have all this funding, oh, hey, GE, once I finish implementing. Exactly. I was on the phone with GE the next day, is basically saying like, look, I have this foreign trade zone program I'm implementing for them. It was a big project, so I didn't want to like leave overnight, but basically worked out with them, for the next 3 months, I'm going to taper off and then eventually like leave GE altogether, going on with this venture. And they were supportive, it was fine. But basically, yeah, made the decision pretty quickly to take the leap from GE, and experience the most tremendous early success that maybe any founder has ever experienced. Like early on, just all of the cards, all of the stars were aligned, right? The crypto bull market, Terra was like the fastest rising thing within the crypto bull market. My own, personal finances, were going up because I bought Luna early. We invested in Luna with the project a little bit. We were able to raise public funding without VCs. So all of this stuff was going great. We were hitting escape velocity, talking to the Save the Children and St. Jude's of the world. It was just like, this is it. We're redefining philanthropy. We're taking over. We had on-chain governance launched, token, the whole nine. Our community voted on chain to send $500,000 down to the Philippines for disaster relief. We raised 1.5 million in a climate change fundraiser with NFT gamification. And then May of 22, the world just falls out from under us. The Terra blockchain collapsed. May 11th, it's Do Kwon tweeting, steady lads, capital. May 12th, radio silence, but the peg is continuing to fall. And we are sitting here with charity funds in our smart contract. So I reached out to Doe, like over Telegram, and I was just like, hey, Doe, what do I need to do? Do I need to capitulate with charity funds here? And he called me directly, and we had a short convo where basically he confirmed that the peg wasn't coming back. We should go out and sell whatever we can. So I took that back to my team, was like, guys, we need to mobilize, we need to sell whatever we can. some people on the team were like, oh, but maybe the peg will still come back. I'm like, nah, no, it ain't, it ain't coming back. We were waking up our CTO in the Philippines. We were scrambling to just like, aggregate and withdraw as many funds as possible. And it was like an Indiana Jones hat moment where the peg was falling from like 70 cents to like 10 cents in like real time as we're just urgently shuttling money out and trying to get it off to exchanges. And one of the most harrowing experiences of my life. Like I've never been like urgently moving, $3 to $6 million like actions and just like, all right, send $1. Okay, send the other 3 million. Like it's just like
Always send the $1 first.
always with the $1 first. Yeah, but yeah, so I aged many years that week. And we were able to get, some of the money out. It was a very tough situation because across any front, like on a personal level, I had made my first million and then lost my first million overnight, way heavily over invested into the Terra ecosystem. With Angel, we just had a lot of funds locked up in either different types of LP pools or things that we couldn't get the funds out fast enough in that scenario where the network was breaking down and everyone was trying to move stuff at once. So we were able to get enough out to live to fight another day. We had to pull from our own runway, but we were able to make 97% of the charities completely whole. We had 3 larger organizations that had sizable sums, talked with them, made sure that we worked out relationships with them where everyone was happy. And yeah, we were able to survive the Terra crash. We relaunched on Juno, which was another Cosmos chain that used the same tech stack basically. So we didn't have to make significant modifications to our contracts and we could relaunch, make sure charities had access to their funds. And through all of that, with the proactive communication, with the quickly relaunching, with the doing our very best to make charities whole, we were able to build a lot of goodwill with our clients. We had almost no churn from that entire collapse, relaunch, which is incredible. One of the last things we wanted to do, like our goal has always been to welcome these change-making organizations into the Web3 space, show them the benefits, show them how powerful it can be, make them evangelists for it. And so for this kind of thing to happen where we built up their trust and then they lost everything, it was like, we can't let this stand. We can't just all of a sudden, all of these people now become detractors and are going to go out and tell everyone what a scam Web3 is. And it's like, but no, like the technology is still game changing. Like this is still what we should be doing. And the fact that we were able to keep them on board, keep the nonprofits aligned with the mission. Hey, Web3 can be a force for good, and have them stick with us through that. I mean, it's been great validation, and it's been what's kept us going through the tough times because, frankly, for a year after the collapse, and any founder can attest to this,
It's been brutal.
Michael, psychologically, emotionally, just, yeah, you want to quit, you want to give up, you want to be like, hey, everything that was a tailwind turned into a headwind. Crypto was on the rise, Terra was on the rise. There's all this money being poured into charitable causes, and yeah, then all of a sudden Terra collapsed, and we spent a year of like a combination of cope and naivety and just like product market flailing of what we wanted our direction to be next. And we've gotten through that now, and I feel really good about our path forward. But there was a time when we were just like, desperately trying to raise investor funds. We were trying to keep going with like, growth and our full team size. And we felt like if we just made it through, the next like 6 months or so, that there would be air and light on the other side. And over the next 6 months from the Terra collapse, you had FTX fall,
Celsius,
like
Voyager,
everything.
SoftBank.
Yeah, collapse on collapse on collapse. And it's both industries. So the crypto market completely crashed. Users, liquidity, investors fell. Like the investment money into Web3 fell something absurd, like over 95% between like 2022 and 2023, the amount of funding. So investors just aren't here for the most part. And on the donation side of things, like donations are at like 90% or are less than 90% of their 2020 or their pre-pandemic totals. So individual donations are down across the board. So we're facing the situation where we developed a crypto donation platform and then crypto market collapse and individual donation market collapse. And it's like everything just feels against you. And at a certain point, it stopped being defeating and it became invigorating. Like it was like you take enough hits and you're just like, I'm going to throw this dream on my back. I'm going to hike up a mountain as I get kicked in the groin and like I'm going to like just break. This is happening, you know, I'm not being stopped. And that kind of strength and inner fuel is what I have tapped into. And it's paying off, right? We're seeing all this validation. We're about to relaunch on Polygon. We got support from them to move over. We've continued to onboard clients. We've continued to get donations in through the Angel Alliance, which is our version of decentralized social responsibility. Over 125 blockchain-based projects have contributed to charities on-chain through angel giving. We're going to be able to do non-custodial DApps when we launch. So we have all this stuff going on. We saw a lot of product market fit and validation from customers. And it was really just getting through that. And there's a quote I love from Charles Bukowski: what matters most is how well you walk through the fight. So it's never going to be easy. It's never just going to be unicorns and roses and rainbows. Like you're going to get knocked on your ass. You're going to get knocked on your ass repeatedly. You're going to have to get up. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to change. And I've just embraced that resiliency because on one hand, you could look at what's happened over the past year plus and been like, oh God, that's just so awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you. But that's not the real story. The real story is I have received priceless life lessons and experience that I could not have gained from any other type of way. It's like, you're so conditioned to run away from the discomfort when the only path to growth and fulfillment is to go through that.
Gotta push through it.
So,
it's like you
thank
fall
you,
down
life.
7 times, you get back up 8. Just making sure you get back
100%.
up and you keep on pushing. I got one quick final question for you as well. Is like, so for everyone, what would be, I would say, like the top advice that you would kind of give like starting founders that are coming out of here and like about to start into the industry, or even for people that are starting to look into angel giving as well? Like where can they start? Where can they kind of go into it as well? So I guess it's a 2-part question. One is how tips and tricks or kind of like advice for founders that are starting, and then the second one is going to be how can they also be a part and contribute to angel giving as well?
Got it. Yeah, so for the first part, I would say it's so important to recognize that everyone experiences imposter syndrome and no one really has it all figured out. I think one of the most intimidating things as an early founder is seeing all of these success stories and all of these people who present themselves in a very polished kind of way. And the truth is, you start talking to these people, you start hearing their backstories, like what you're pulling out in these kinds of interviews, and you realize that the path wasn't easy for anyone who really is anyone, right? If the path was easy for them, you probably haven't really heard about them that much. Like, everyone's figuring it out all the time. And I emphasize that aspect of it so much because you really have to learn to trust your own gut and intuition. And that can be very difficult when you're playing the comparison game and seeing how other people are presenting how they've done things, because you always feel inadequate. You never feel like you get it or that you know enough. And the secret is no one does. Everyone's in the same boat as you. Everyone's figuring it out all the time. And when you really learn to accept that, it's so freeing. Like a pressure falls off your back of like, the only ideal I need to live up to is my own. And specific advice to founders depends so much on what they're trying to do. Like, are you trying to raise as much money as possible? Are you, as Steve Jobs said, trying to make your dent in the universe? Like, are you trying to create a business that you want to run for the rest of your life and you just needed to generate the revenue to do that? Or are you trying to get that to like flip into other things and be a serial entrepreneur? So the specifics of what you as a founder want are going to dictate the advice that is most relevant for you. But at the end of the day, it's keep it simple, stupid. There are 18 billion different frameworks and things and ways to think about things. And if you get too stuck in that, it becomes a self-defeating like procrastination type thing. You can research every tool, you can research every framework, and it's so easy to get stuck in those rabbit holes of like, okay, well, I'm gonna spend, this week researching different CRM tools, and is it HubSpot or this or that? Like, there's all of these rabbit holes, but keep the Pareto principle in mind, the 80-20. Think about the things that are most critical and keep it simple. Figure out what customers want, talk to those customers, build something that solves their problems. It's cliche, but it's so easy to do wrong. And from my own experience, right, as we were pivoting around product market fit, we wanted to do this angel infrastructure thing that was going to be for all businesses everywhere, for blockchain infra, and we wanted to have the highest possible ceiling of potential to get investor money. And in doing so, we were just losing the strength of what we were and what makes us special and what our organizational DNA is. So one size does not fit all. It's always going to be dependent on your team, your vision, what you want to accomplish, and just keep it as simple as possible. Figure out customers, figure out how to solve their problems, talk to them. If you have that be your starting point, like everything else will fall in place. Everything else is kind of details. So yeah, just be patient with yourself and understand that no one has it all figured out. And the only way you figure out is by trying and failing and iterating.
And what about the second part? So how can they kind of like be a part and, have a bigger role and active part in angel giving as well?
Yeah, so for angel giving, we're really excited about open sourcing all of our protocol. Basically, just to give some light here, we've had angel giving, the nonprofit endowment and fundraising product. We have Angel Alliance, which is basically a collective of people who donate in different blockchains, projects, NFTs, validators that donate in. And then we have the actual tech behind it all, which we talk about as Angel Impact. Now, Angel Impact doesn't have much of our focus as like a separate business vertical at this point, because we're really putting most of our effort into Angel Giving and Angel Alliance. But what Angel Impact is the actual tech stack behind it all that anyone can build. So what we're focused on with our Polygon launch is open sourcing everything, both front end and our smart contracts, creating different types of SDKs so people can build with this. And we have a bunch of different pilots around the world that are doing things with crowdfunding, doing things with microfinancing, doing things with collective fundraising and grant making. And these organizations are all using our infrastructure to help enable them building or embedding blockchain tech. So in terms of getting involved, it really depends. If you are a nonprofit, please go to angelgiving.io, come register. It's free to register. Our whole mission is democratizing access to financial opportunity. And to do that, we make sure that any nonprofit anywhere in the world of any size has access to our financial tooling. So there's no cost to register. You get a free fundraising profile page. You get a fundraising widget you can put on your site. You get the ability to invest your donated funds into a variety of different yield sources like US Treasury bills. So you can not only raise funds, but actually grow them for a sustainable runway. And you can accept any type of donation from, fiat and cash to crypto to stocks and DAF contributions. So accept any donation anywhere in the world, get a free fundraising page, get a free donation widget, experience Web3, tell your friends, come experience it with no risk to yourself. When you see the benefits it brings to you, then yeah, go tell others. But any nonprofits welcome. Also, if you're a nonprofit outside the US and you want to be able to provide US tax receipts, we do offer fiscal sponsorship so that you can accept US donors, give them tax write-off receipts. So another functionality not available to a lot of global nonprofit type of organizations. And then on the other side of it, on the donor side, we have a lot of innovative ways to donate, direct donations, being able to do lossless giving, where you stake funds and have the yield go to charity, the ability to set up your own on-chain non-custodial DApp. For those not familiar, that's a donor advised fund. It just means you can donate any of your funds into it, get an immediate tax receipt, grow them over time through our different yield options, and then disperse them to different nonprofit organizations as you see fit. So on both the charity side, nonprofit side, as well as the donor side, we really pride ourselves on developing innovative solutions, making it as easy as possible to give and receive. And then finally, if you are a developer who wants to help us build out any of the functionality, you want to embed charity into your existing app or protocol, you want to build something entirely different, blockchain related, using our impact infrastructure, angelimpact.io, we have the site up. You can see some more of our functionality that we offer there. But yeah, across the board, just helping spread the word, helping welcome nonprofit organizations and donors, any projects that want to give back in the space. We offer a completely non-custodial on-chain way to do that. That's true to Web3 and blockchain ethos. So a lot of ways you can contribute, and we're always welcoming help.
It's always good to give, and thank you for taking the time out today, and being on here as well. Where can they find you? Like, what would be a good like whether it's Telegram, Twitter, any other social links? Which one would be the easiest one for them to reach out to you?
I guess for people overall, probably Twitter. And I'm just at Chauncey _St. John. And yeah, I'm doxxed everywhere. So on Telegram, I'm at Chauncey St. John, or you can always email me at chauncey@angelgiving.io.
Thanks, Chauncey. I'll go ahead and place it down in the description for everyone as well. And thank you for taking the time out to do the re-recording today as well.
No problem, Michael. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving me the mic and the platform here. And again, just love what you're doing. I think these are the kinds of interesting podcasts that really give people a more human side of things. And it just sets it apart from hearing the same people talk about the same stuff on all the other podcasts. So thanks for bringing something fresh to the space.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of like bring the human element back into it, because like a lot of people don't understand like how much founders go through, or kind of like how they were growing up and everything. Like how you were saying earlier, it's like everyone's not perfect. Sometimes there's things that what happened within their life to push them towards what they're doing now. But for me, it's always about bringing the human side of it, because everyone's always on a constant mission to kind of just, hey, push the product. But I want to be like, hey, let's step back real quick. How was your day? Who are you as a person? I'd rather get the more personalized side of the story.
100%. When I think of like, there's that Frank Sinatra song, "I Did It My Way." And when I think of that, I think of how I treat other people, because that's been one of the not hardest things, but like as an entrepreneur, you're constantly faced with this, just produce, and this very human element of like having to hire people, let people go, do all of that. And like, I just always emphasize, I just try and stay focused in that kindness and compassion. What would I want in that situation? And it pays practical dividends. Like one of my things with life is we just need to focus on the intrinsic motivation. People aren't good or bad. People do good or bad things, but people really, they're all inherently selfish. Some people are selfish in a way that they try and extract value and seek those extrinsic rewards, and we see those people as the bad guys. And there's people who are selfish on an intrinsic level and do things because it makes them feel good, and help like give and support people around them because they know that it makes them feel really good to do that. And that kind of selfishness, I think should be applauded and rewarded, because we see how society is broken down in different ways. And it's not that capitalism is bad. Capitalism is great. Capitalism has pushed humanity to new heights and unlocked things that we never would have had possible. But it's so focused on the extrinsic, right? And I feel like we need to bring that balance back and help people see how the intrinsic motivations are even more valuable in terms of their personal health, happiness, fulfillment. When they see how it has a personal impact like that, then you can sort of shift that selfishness from the extrinsic side over to the intrinsic
It's
side.
the yin and yang.
Exactly. Our philosophy is win and help win. Align incentives in a way that actually makes sense to acknowledge its human nature, rather than trying to design a nonprofit system entirely based on selfless altruism. And there's just ways to do things smarter, and we know how to do them better at this point. We have the technology to do it. So let's do it. Let's invent new ways, because everyone recognizes that the old systems are broken. We don't have to tear those systems down. We just have to build better alternatives, right? And so that's what we're focused on.
It's kind of like what we were saying earlier. It's the derivative arbitrage.
Yes.
The systems are there, but we're like, hey, we'll use some of this and we'll kind of make it better. But Chauncey, thanks for your time today, and thanks for hopping on.
Love it. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.